listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.
Well, welcome to episode 1 of hosted by Ambitiously Intuitive, Truth or Dare to Share, which we'll get to later where we came up with that name. I think there's still some debate as to whether or not it's the right name, but who knows? Maybe we'll change it over time. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Lacey Larson. I originally founded Ambitiously Intuitive 2 years ago, and it has evolved into a podcast because it's what everybody's doing these days, but nobody has my story or some of my favorite people on the planet, their story. And we're here to talk about, speaking of stories, our favorite ones when it comes to how do imaginary and fictional characters impact our lives. And if you can't tell by the hot pink that I'm wearing, we're kicking off by talking about Barbie, especially since it's Halloween. And I saw at least 3 of them walking down the streets of New York last night. But I'm going to let everybody else introduce themselves, and then I'll give a bigger background as to why we're here and how we got here. And I think we're going in alphabetical order. So Amina, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hey, everybody. I'm Amina. I'm just a person that loves to talk about things. So I'm excited to be here. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a DJ. That's my background. That's my qualifications for being here. And yeah, I'm excited to share my thoughts on Barbie with everybody.
Yeah, you'll learn how I met Amina, but at one point she was my personal trainer, and now I'm helping her with a business. So you'll learn about that connection along the way. Again, alphabetical, it makes me feel like I'm back in school. Cynthia, do you want to go next?
Hi, all. I'm Cynthia. I love reading. I love all things gossip and, well, I shouldn't say gossip. I should say social media, celebrities and reading. And I love really good TV shows and movies. And I want to hear from you guys, too, how you relate to all the things that we're talking about, too.
Awesome. Kenyatta?
Hey everybody, I'm Kenyatta, and I love all things entertainment, acting, singing. I'm obsessed with it. I want to be drawn in it, dumped inside of it. I would love to do that for the rest of my life, but let's just be realistic. It's not that feasible. So I'm excited to hear everybody's opinion on how these characters impacted their lives because I get so much from movies and just want to share that with y'all.
I did tell Kenyatta, by the way, that hopefully nobody's offended by this, that if I ever have like a life story, a biopic, that I want Kenyatta to play me. I'm like, you're the only person I would trust to actually play me. And we'll talk about this at a different time. Cynthia was the person who first exposed me to Jackie Collins, which I still have the Lucky Santangelo series sitting over there. I have to go back into it. Again, another conversation for another day. Michelle, you're up next.
Hello, everybody. I am Michelle, and I am so excited about this podcast and sharing our stories and what impacts us. But what I'm really excited about is just getting to know these ladies on the podcast and getting to see how we converse because this is our first time doing it. And yeah, looking forward to it.
You know, that's my favorite thing about birthdays is why I have an excuse to bring all the people from all of the stories of my life together. And I think that's just why I created this, is so I had to force all of you to meet each other once a month. Let's make a long-term goal that we eventually all do this in person, at least once every couple months. So Amina, should it be Amsterdam, Taylor Swift in July? Get everybody to come, get everybody to come there. Manifestation, I'll put it on my vision board. Raquel, next.
Hi, everyone. Raquel. I'm so pumped about this. I think just the energy that I feel coming through from all of you and the connection that women have and just being able to, share stories, identify with characters, see ourselves in these characters. How does that affect us? How does it affect our communities, our families? I just think this is brilliant. I'm super excited. And I think we're going to do big things with it. So just ready to kick this off with Barbie.
Yeah. Okay.
Barbie
Sit
girl.
back, relax, put on pink or don't. Barbie is not limited to just one color, just like we are not. I will give a quick backstory and then we'll jump directly into Barbie. So the reason that we're here, other than me forcing all of my friendships in my life to come onto one conversation on a Zoom call, Amina asked me over the summer if you could be doing anything, like money were no issue, what would you be doing? And I was on my hammock on my balcony in the Upper East Side, and I was like rocking and thinking about it. And I was like, I just want to read books and watch movies and talk about it with my friends. And she's like, well, what's stopping you from doing that right now? And I responded a little bit more instantly, and I said, absolutely nothing. And then Cynthia happened to be visiting me at the time, and we had a 2-day drive from New York down to Florida because my 60-pound pit bull, she could fly on a plane, but I'm not putting her in cargo. That's a separate conversation for another day. And we were listening to a book that maybe we'll talk about at some point, Hello Beautiful by Cynthia. Do you know how to pronounce her last name? Napolitano. No. If anybody knows how to pronounce it, feel free to let me know, but I'm going to attempt Anne Napolitano. And we were listening. It's about these 4 sisters, and Cynthia and I would pause and we would talk about which character we align with or what situation we had been through. And I hadn't had that experience with anybody where you're stuck in a car. Well, not stuck. We were there by choice, but listening to this 10-hour Audible. And I was so inspired by the story. I messaged the author and I thanked her halfway through, which I haven't done a lot because she was bold enough to put this story out into the universe. And then the next day I said to Cynthia, can we listen to a nonfiction? Because I rotate between fiction and nonfiction. And then we were talking about our dreams and businesses we want to do. And essentially I said to Cynthia, we were talking about Hello Beautiful the day before, like, why aren't we doing this and making it a podcast? And there's so many podcasts out there, or what about exposing myself? And I knew that it would be easier to do if I did it with all my friends. And so the type A person in me put a plan on paper, and everybody on this call agreed that it may or may not be a good idea. So here we are giving it a try. And since
it may be a good idea.
I think so, but I'm clearly biased. So this is going to be in 3 acts, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, in an homage to Shakespeare, who I think is, even though it's a dude, one of the greatest storytellers that we're aware of, probably because there were some female storytellers that were not a part of her story instead of his story. Anyway, showing all my cards right at the top of the conversation. So Act 1 is going to be the general reaction to the story. Act 2, we're going to ask each other a roundtable of questions that we're curious to hear from one another. And then Act 3, we're going to play the game Truth or Dare, but not the middle school version, or what, I don't know what the adult version is. I don't know if I want to know, but coming from a place of a growth mindset. Truth being, how did this story spur something inside of you, a parallel story? And Dare could be, now that I ingested this story, like, this is what I may or may not do differently. So we'll go ahead and get started, starting with Act 1, reaction to the content. I will go first since I am trying to embody her today. Not trying, I am embodying her today. I went and saw it by myself. I'm actually a little frustrated at Michelle because I asked her to come see it with me. I asked everybody. I was in Pensacola at the time and nobody wanted to come see it with me, but I got everybody to agree to go see Oppenheimer. And as I asked people afterwards, like, which one did they enjoy more? They all said Barbie, like, unequivocally, if that's a word. Is that a word? Unequivocally?
Yeah.
It was a mouthful. Thank you. I needed validation. And I walked out feeling so good. And I'm kind of glad I saw it with strangers, because I don't know. If somebody's laughing next to me, especially like Cynthia, you have a really great laugh. If she's laughing, like, then I'm more inclined to. So I got to really see how was my organic reaction, and how are all these people that I didn't know, what was their reaction. But I knew it was going to be good because it was Greta Gerwig. And Greta Gerwig did Lady Bird. She redid Little Women, which hopefully we talk about in a different podcast, because Florence Pugh made me go from, I used to hate Amy, no disrespect to Kirsten Dunst, but Florence Pugh and Greta Gerwig, the storytelling of Amy, made me go completely 180. And so I went into Barbie knowing if there's somebody who could do this story justice, it's Greta Gerwig. So that was my reaction. I was unsurprised, and I really loved the satisfaction of being right from all these people who didn't want to see it. And so one by one, I asked everybody, and hence why.
Can I ask you a question about Little Women?
Yeah, of course.
So do you think, like, your perspective has changed because you're an adult now, though, on Amy?
Well, I'll never know, but since I'm the youngest and you being the oldest sibling, I think Raquel, Michelle, and myself, and then Kenyatta, are you the youngest as well? And then Amina, I know you're a twin. I know when I watched her, I felt like I could feel the collectiveness around people thinking the youngest are bratty. And I was like angry at that portrayal. And it was this weird, projection. And I I was mad at Florence Pugh when she threw the story into the fireplace. But that scene between her and Timothy Chalamet, where she is like acknowledging a woman's place at that time, which is what, the 19th century? Is that the 1800s?
It's around the Civil War time.
Her ability to execute that character and share her wisdom and how she had grown up. I don't think they gave Kirsten Dunst, they didn't give that character that ability. So yes, as an adult, but I also think the story was different. I don't know how we pivot back to Barbie other than
Well, Greta's taking different movie thing. Like obviously she remade that movie, and this one, I know I read a thing about her opening scene is supposed to be a Stanley Kubrick like nod. So
yeah. Well, Cynthia, since you already came off mute, I'm breaking the rules already. Why don't you give your reaction to Barbie?
Okay. Well, I loved Barbie. I actually saw this with my daughters. So it was just like a lot of smiling, a lot of laughter. I was trying to look back at my notes. Also just like all the female empowerment and everyone loving on everyone, and obviously the female Supreme Court, and also just that women matter and we are special and we deserve to have emotions too. That was my takeaway.
Amina, I'm going to go back to rotation.
Yeah, for sure. My first reaction to Barbie was the marketing was genius, yo. Like it made you feel like you had to see it. So everybody that's in any sort of business needs to take a play out of their book with the marketing. The fashion, the music, it was what the world needed. Because I feel like at the time, like I'm sorry, like Oppenheimer, I would never see that. You'd have to like pay me to go see that.
I was like, what is
that is not the vibe. That is not the vibe at all, period. So it was just like Barbie was what the world needed, and Barbie is what the world needs in general. Like people need to lighten up and have more fun.
Levity.
That's just my, you know what I'm saying? So it was, besides all the feminist stuff that we obviously need to talk about too, it was just the first vibe was like, yes, this is fun. This is for everybody. This is music. This is culture. This is a moment we need. It reminded me kind of Mean Girls. You know what I mean? It was a good story, but it was just like, people need to laugh, and people are more likely to change and grow if things feel positive and fun. It's like a Trojan horse, you know what I mean? It's like making multivitamins gummies. That's what Barbie felt like. You know what I mean? So
are these in your notes or are they just coming out? That's coming out organically. It made multivitamins gummies.
Yeah, no notes over here. Just my first instinct. But yeah, that's what, like, you know what I'm saying? Barbie is just, it's pink and fun. The album was everything, and they really had like Tame Impala was on that album, Dua Lipa, like so many great artists were on that album. So it was
one of my favorite concerts.
It was a piece for the culture. Yeah, I bet. It's just, yeah, the culture needed that for a second. Something to get everybody together, something fun, something light, but also still had a positive message.
Which, sidebar, since you brought up Dua Lipa, I listened to her album because of you when we were working out together. And you were like, you should listen to it. She's going back to the 70s and she's playing real music. And then I ended up at that concert actually with Cynthia, and I knew every word. I was in like the top 1% of her listeners. And like when you're embarrassed to like show your Spotify, I was very proud of that. And then I was glad to see she was in the movie with John Cena, and they were both mermaids. And there was a whole thing about the wig, the hair. But if you compare her next to the actual mermaid Barbie, it looks extremely similar. Like that was the way it was supposed to look.
Yeah, that's what's up. Dua definitely has Barbie energy.
Yes, she does. Kenyatta, you're up.
So Barbie, I agree with everything Amina said. Like the marketing, the advertising, the fashion made me feel like, okay, I really need to see this movie, but I eventually not going to see it because my daughter went with someone else. So I bought it for $30 on HBO. So I was like, okay. So I know it hurt me too because I know it's going to be free next week. So I'm sitting and I'm watching it and I'm all hyped, and I'm like, oh, well, this has a bigger message because the little girl in me was looking forward to, y'all know those Barbie stories that used to come on TV and they're going on adventures all the time. I thought it was going to be a lot more animated, but not animated. I know it's not an animated movie, but I thought the storyline was going to be very animated, and it wasn't. So that took me back a little bit. And then as it kept playing, and then as I got into like the actual storyline, I really got into it because it was so needed. It was so needed. And then I live in a very conservative place, so I'm like, oh, y'all doing that? They gonna get y'all. But every little girl needed to see this movie, even if they didn't understand it, because I'm pretty sure a lot of little girls went into the theater thinking they were going to see something fun and adventurous and really animated, and left like, oh, girls can do that. Wow, the world should really be like that. So I love how they took it and they spun it.
Michelle,
I liked
what'd you
it.
think?
I'll watch it again.
Oh,
Me too.
I'm with you, Kaneda. I think I'll watch it again soon too. Man, it hit home. I mean, it was so relatable from start to finish. And to Amina's point, the marketing, I think the line was, if you love Barbie, you need to see it. If you hate Barbie, you need to see it. Everybody needs to see it. And for people bashing it, it's because they haven't seen it and they don't know the real storyline. But
Mhm.
it was so good. I mean, I laughed, I cried. The whole theater was laughing. I walked away feeling really happy, excited. And I think happy and excited because they touched on so many relevant points that need to be said out loud and need to be talked about and need to be normalized. And so I think everybody needs to see it. I loved it, and I'm with you, Kenyatta. I'll be watching it again or at your house since you bought it.
I give you my login.
Yeah,
That's true
I
friendship,
loved
giving
it.
giving your login.
Yeah.
Raquel, close out Act One reaction.
So I went and saw it with my sister and my niece, who's 15, and her friend. And I also, similar to, I think it was Kenyetta that said that thought it was going to be like an adventure story. So I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. But as the movie went on, I really appreciated the diversity in Barbie and seeing the different Barbies and what that represented. Because I'm so aware of the fact that like we need to be who we are and celebrate who we are. And so that hit home, seeing Barbie portrayed in all these different versions of herself. And I also really love the fact that like the pendulum was swinging back to women having more power. And I think that's just such an important narrative that needs to be spoken about, of claiming our power, of taking up space in a room, all of that. It was so powerful. Love the film. I thought it was fun. We all enjoyed it. We had lots to talk about. So definitely really, really huge fan.
Now, I know we're talking about the characters, but I do want to say, actor wise, one thing that kind of distracted me a little bit in the movie was Ryan Gosling being that blonde. It like threw me off like the whole film. I was like, why is his hair that blonde? Like, I don't know, but that was just a me thing.
That's your feedback to Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, my bad.
No, I mean you're entitled to your reaction. That's the whole precipice
Like,
of this.
love the movie. Too much bleach.
Any final reaction thoughts before we go into Act Two and ask each other, almost like book club-esque questions? I don't know what you call book club. Movie club? Weren't they the
We'll
AV
start
club
one.
in high school? We're doing it right now. So we'll go into Act Two. And my question, and we'll go in reverse order. So Raquel, you should start first, but everybody think about it. And I guess I'll give my answer to my question, which is for me a little bit weird because I'm just like, I'm talking to myself with witnesses, but that's okay. So mine is a two-parter. One is, and a lot of you alluded to the emotions, whether you saw it with other folks or yourself, is where did you get emotional in the movie? And like, why do you think that is? And so I'll attempt to quickly share mine. While I think the America Ferrera monologue is one of the most obvious ones, the one that I felt the most emotional was the very end when she met the creator, her mother. And I read a New York Times article about this particular scene where the writer pointed out why they felt like it upset them. But I was like in tears. And it was particularly the line when she said, and I'm probably not going to do it justice, but she said, mothers stand still so we can watch how far our daughters come. And essentially, the article of the New York Times was like, I want my mom to come with me. Like, why can't mothers grow too? But because I'm esoteric and a little bit of a hippie, I saw it more as like like she was representing the generations of women. Like, I do think women, if your mom is still here, and for those of you, there are 50% of the people on this call have children. And I do think that mothers can evolve, but I think that creator was meant to show like our ancestors and how proud ancestors are of how women are making strides. But of course I thought of like me and my mom, but I still see my mom growing to a certain extent. She's, not saying my mom needs to change anything, but that I found to be more, that was the part that really stuck with me. And this like conversation around, is there a point at which you stop growing? And I think that that's a self-imposed choice. So Raquel, again, starting from the top, my question was, did you get emotional? And if so, where in the movie?
Yeah. Like off the bat, the image that comes to mind is when she was at the lunch table with the girls in high school, and she was kind of getting a little bit bullied for being herself, being bright, positive, bubbly, blonde Barbie, all of who she was. That, like, when you asked the question, that came to mind, because I think for me, it was like, just, I don't know. This is not going to be very articulate, but it was like a moment where she was just being herself, and she was getting criticized for who she was, which the world is a hard place. And sometimes people have fixed opinions of you, or they look at you physically and they think, oh, you must be this way or that way, or I don't know. It struck a chord with me, because it was like a sense of me identifying with maybe a feeling of that in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what, though? It's funny you brought up that table at the lunch scene, because those girls were actually the original Bratz dolls. So I saw it on Instagram, but like, yeah, it was those three girls they were the Bratz dolls. So,
oh, brilliant.
Fun fact. Which Bratz, I mean, Bratz and Barbie are like, they're the same, but so different. I think Bratz represent something else,
Bratz were
I
very
think Barbie's
liberated.
a little more, yeah, for sure. You said Barbie's more liberated?
No, I said like originally
Bratz.
Bratz were way more liberated than Barbies before Barbie
Yeah, it
had
was
the
a
whole
different
redesign.
era.
Yeah.
And it was funny because they were also younger too, which kind of shows you it's like Gen Z. It's more Gen Z millennial Bratz, you know what I mean? Whereas like Barbie is more comes from like the 50s and stuff with more of the patriarchy,
Well, aren't teenagers? I mean, I haven't been one for quite some time. I think I still channel my inner teenager at times, which is fine. But they're under that pressure to be cool, and it's like it's not cool to be, I don't know, overly positive. I don't know. It's hard for me to like time travel. It's like even at the top of the call, Cynthia, when you were like, well, what about Little Women as an adult versus back then? Like, I wonder if I were a teenager seeing this, is it as impactful? And would you be able to get it? And I don't know. I think teenagers are like the wisest because of information age that we've ever seen them. But I can't, I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. But I think I read that months ago, but I completely forgot the whole Bratz representation. Well, shifting gears, Michelle, answer to the emotional question.
Yeah, so I think there was a few scenes, but the scene you mentioned first where they're all in the house together after the boys are taking over, the Kens are taking over, and they're all listening to America. And when she's giving her speech, and I think that was where I got emotional just listening to her, because it's things that have happened, and again, I was relating to it, and I felt a connection and felt like she was talking to me when she's talking to the Barbies, and I was like kind of just mouth open, like teary-eyed. But yeah, I would say that scene for now.
Kenyatta, you're up.
So for me, it was when Barbie Land had turned into Kinland, and watching all of these powerful Barbies like have on aprons and serve beer while they watch football and stuff. And it just reminded me how as women we so often like we drop our power like that when it comes to a man. Like, oh, I can't be stronger than him. I can't make more money than him. I can't make him feel, demasculated in any way. He won't want me. And I just think about all the women that I know personally. And there's a time in my life where, Lord Jesus, I dumbed down for a man and I regretted it. And I'm just watching, I'm like, dang, girl, you are Supreme Justice Barbie. You don't have to do that. But it just hit home, especially like where I live. A lot of women, give up their power to be that typical Barbie, the housewife Barbie, because that was the dream for so long. And a lot of women still don't realize that you can have it. You can have it all. You can be powerful and a great wife, a powerful and a good girlfriend, powerful and a great mother. You don't have to dumb down or make yourself small for a man anymore.
Do you think people listening to this would call bullshit on that? Because I don't know what it is about my algorithm.
I think a lot of people would, because a lot of women are still making themselves small to appease men. Yeah, it's still a thing. I think it's just something that we got to break out of, and it's going to take a couple generations to do. I mean, we were literally raised from the dawn of time up until like women didn't really start gaining a decent voice till like the 70s to be docile for men. So yeah, it's going to take a few generations to really bust through it.
Kenyatta, don't you think where we were raised, we were kind of told from an early age
Girl,
that that's kind of what we're supposed to do?
Absolutely. I
Helen, if Helen's
Jesus.
listening to this, which by the way, I said I wouldn't call her by her first name, but all of you know who she is, she would probably jump in right now and be like, that's not what I taught my daughters, but
Helen was an exception. But like most
goddess
like,
queen, if she's listening.
Goddess queen. Like in the South, like most of the girls are raised like, I know girls with degrees in, infectious disease, they have PhDs who are housewives, which is cool. Stay-at-home mom life. I've done that. That is pretty dope, but it's hard. And I'm like, why the hell would anybody want to do this? Like, I would rather go to work than be responsible for everything in a household and kids all day. And I love my children. I really do, but I can talk shit about them because they're mine. Like, I don't get it. But yeah, in the South, girls are raised where being somebody's mother and being a wife is the ultimate goal, no matter how smart you are.
And it's funny because now on Instagram, people are calculating the cost of being a stay-at-home mom and like all the services you provide. Like if you really clean, teach your kids things, do all those things, it's like $190K a year when you factor in all those services.
And I sure don't get paid that. So
and yeah, so it's like exactly. It is unpaid labor a lot of the time. And that is like a product of the patriarchy. For me though, it's different. Like my grandma, everybody should know who she is because she had a business. So my whole life I saw a successful entrepreneur as a woman who hired men. She was the CEO, still is. You know what I mean? She runs a business in her late 60s and her branding is all pink. And on her branding, it says it's a woman's world. She rents out apartments, but that's her branding. You know what I mean? And my whole life, she's always taught me that like, I have to tread lightly because men have always been under women in my upbringing. Like men have never been, the goal was never to like be a housewife in my upbringing. It was always to have your own money and be your own boss. But I kind of wanted to rebel against my grandma. So this Barbie movie was like a full circle because growing up, the whole thing for my grandma was like, the only thing a man's good for is money. He needs to pay for everything. You know what I mean? Like he needs to be the
I
breadwinner,
love
but you also need
her.
to get your bag, and you don't spend your money on the household. You know what I mean? He spends all his money to raise a family, but you have your own on the side. You have your own business on the side. And I was mad at her because she'd always be like, you're single till you're married. You should be dating like 5 guys at once. She'd always have me going to like the best restaurants. You need to be classy. You need to get like, she would try to subscribe me like to New York. She wanted me to get like a membership to the opera and the ballet and all these things. She's like, I'll pay for it, because she'd only want me around rich guys, because she was like, those are the only guys worth your time, because the only thing a man can provide is resources. Because other than that, like, what's the point? And I was like, damn, grandma, that's so savage.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
OG City girl. I love
And
grandma.
then I tried to go with like the whole falling in love thing, be with a guy for love. I was like, fuck this. I see exactly my grandma's point. And Barbie was like, I'm in a turning point. I'd say like my 20s, I did things my grandma's way, and she was right. I was only dating rich guys. I had the best experiences. But then I was like, let me go for love. Then my late 20s was about love, and I got in this relationship that was some bullshit. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, yeah, actually, let me go back to my grandma's way, because she's kind of right. So like my mindset is like savage as fuck. Like I'm not really concerned with being a housewife at all. It's never been my goal.
Your grandma
Ever.
lived it. Take the
She
advice.
does. To this day, she has 2 boyfriends in her 80s. They know about each other. She does not pay for dates, and she wakes 3 times more than them. Her number one advice is like, do not pay for anything at all. Like that's a man's job. So that's always been my thing. And that's sort of like,
Speaker, grandma.
I've never had a guy ask me to split a bill on a date. Not once. Even guys that I make more money than, not once, because that's just my frequency. So like for me, like y'all got to be doing your part, or I'm really not interested. And
I
so
feel you
conflicted
on
by
that
this.
I'm taking notes
100%.
over here. I'm taking notes.
I got
Like
notes,
honestly,
girl,
that's
for
something
real.
I didn't learn
Wow.
until like my late 20s. And then when it clicked, it's like, bro, I don't care if you make $12 an hour. I ain't paying.
Mm-mm. No.
Sorry.
Wow. See,
I
and
need
that,
I need a whiteboard to like logic tree all of this, because I'm so indifferent to this conversation. I've been told like they have to pay for me, and I'm like, I don't mind splitting it, which Amina is in the Netherlands
No.
right now, like going Dutch. But
No, I've never gone Dutch
Stop.
once in my life.
Immediately.
Not once in my
Immediately
life. Not
stop
once in my
it.
life, and I never will.
I
Never.
ask, I say to them, I'm like, so how do you want to do this? And I'm like, I'm ready. And it's not even a test. It's like, I wait to see like what's their vibe.
I've
And-
definitely never
Oh.
asked if you want to split a bill. Never.
Never. Don't even offer.
Oh man.
Mm-mm.
I watched
It's
my
another
ex go in the red multiple times to take me out on dinner dates and buy me jewelry. Like that's
That
your
was his
job.
decision.
Period.
It is his
Right. If
decision.
It's
you
a
didn't pick
provider
some sandwiches for us to
mindset.
sit in the park, then that's on
But
you.
then
I'm so sorry.
how can we argue let's be equals if it's they're expected to pay? So explain to me your grandma's logic, because I'm getting educated right now.
We're not equals though. We're not, so we don't have the same role in society. We don't have the same value. Men and women have different values and what they value from the partner. We should be equal as far as our human rights. That's where we should be equal. Like the way that men are allowed to get away with like rape and murder and all these things, and like abusing women, domestic violence. That's where we need to be equal. We need to be equal in our ability to have standing in society. Like my grandma is allowed to be a business owner. That's where we need to be equal. We don't need to be equal in romantic relationships and what we bring to the table in that regard. Because for me, if you want to have kids with me, you need to take into fact that like I'm going to be taking a hit physically and financially. You're not going to be able to do your job on the same level when you have kids, especially in the beginning. So that's what alimony is. Like even the courts have recognized this. Alimony is if you break up, the court is recognizing that you deserve money from this man because you're essentially, it's a transactional thing. We want to be like relationships are love, but like you want kids, it's a transaction. There has to be money around. There has to be resources around. And when you're the woman bearing life, there's no way for the man to compete with that. There's no comparison to what you're putting your body through. It's more risky to have a baby than it is to go to war. Like there's statistics on this. So like you're putting your whole body, your whole life, your whole soul on the line, and you're not going to be able to work the same way you did. So the man needs to be able to provide for that while you're actually getting pregnant and bearing the life. And obviously I haven't been pregnant, I don't have kids, and I know people go to work when they have babies and stuff, but ultimately it's not easy. Like I haven't been pregnant, but I already know it's not easy to be pregnant and go to work and have a new kid and take care of the house and be as good as your job as you were. So like you're taking a risk that when you come back into the workforce, you have to step back years. Your salary is not going to be the same. So why should you be paying for all this stuff when the man, he has all the ability to go to work and bring home the resources and the assets, so that way you can have a foundation for your family where you're happy, you're healthy, and you can raise the kids right. Because if you're a mom and you're stressed about money, going to work and trying to have a baby and take care of the household, how is that equal? It's not. The scales are so fucking imbalanced. It's so much unpaid labor. We already talked about that you can quantify all those resources. So you being a stay-at-home mom is worth $190,000 a year. And then, you know what I mean?
I mean, we were just talking about dinner, not me reproducing.
Oh, dinner.
But
because
let's
ultimately, if you're dating a guy to be his wife, like, you don't want to just be his hit and quit situation. If you just want to hook up, that's one thing. But if you want to be a wife and eventually this guy's wife and the mother of his kids, he needs to start now with building that foundation for you emotionally, financially, so that you feel secure enough and comfortable enough to have a family with him. Some guy that's not going to pay for your dinner that's $30 is not going to pay $30K for your kid's college fund. It doesn't work like that. So he needs to start showing you that he's about it and being the man of the house by putting money on it. Your actions have to speak louder than words. Too many girls are giving it up for a good morning text. You can get that on Instagram every day for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make the man show you that he's really about it by spending. He wants to be your husband. You want to have his kid? Then put money on it. What the fuck you thought this was? You thought it's free? $190,000 worth of labor for free? No, girl.
So there was a study that came out that was they're the two happiest types of people are married men and single women.
They're married,
Raquel,
you get a chef, they get a maid.
Lord.
Raquel, you started to say something.
I was just going to say that it's also letting a man be in his masculine, you know, letting him pay for you and provide for you. That's letting him be in his masculine. And so you have to allow that. And I'm guilty. I am probably I'm now coming to where you guys are and just like wanting more for yourself. I would always offer to pay half or be like, you know, we'll take turns. I was married, my ex-husband, we didn't even have shared bank accounts. Everything was split. It was like the epitome of what you don't want. So now I'm trying to retrain my brain and retrain what I want and realize, no, like I am worthy of this. I'm worthy of a dinner. I mean, and that's the reality. Like Mina said, a $30 meal. Are you kidding me? A $50 meal, a $200 meal, like absolutely every time. But it's like, you have to like, that has to come from within and you have to like build that within you. So this is really interesting conversation.
Yes. And for the men who are like, well, in this economy, it's going to take two people, you're dating above your level.
Period.
Like if you cannot take care of, first of all, us as women, we will prove that we can do everything 100%. Like we pay our own mortgages, we pay our own rent, we pay for our lifestyle. We are taking care of ourselves entirely 100%. He needs to be able to do the same for himself. And any man knows that if he wants a woman, he has to be able to afford a woman. So if you can't afford to pay for that lady's date, or if you can't afford to take care of a household once a woman moves in, then you're dating above your standards. You need to lower your standards. That way you date a woman with lower expectations.
That's true. And like Lacey, you were saying, like, how can we be equals? Like, not only is it financial, it's like women have something that men don't. Like, women are the nurturers, right? Like, we nurture, we create community, we're better at communication, we provide like a different essence than what a man can bring. So men don't usually want a woman to pay for things, at least a man that's in his masculine and has money. Even like I said, it's an energy, like you said, Raquel, it's something you have to give off, because like I've dated millionaires, they would never even, they don't bring up money. What the fuck is there to bring up about money? They know they're going to pay for it. Any guy with 7-figure income is like, would never even think to ask you for anything. That's embarrassing for him. Two, it's like, I dated a super broke guy, like beyond broke, and he still had a provider mindset. He still took me on vacation. He still bought me jewelry. It's because it's like what I allow. It's like a frequency I admit. That's why it's like, I've been through a lot of bullshit in my life, but I've never had a guy ask me to split a bill, because I don't put out that energy, because I know that I'm worth that. And I know that what I can bring you as a man, your peace, being your best friend, being loyal, giving you sex, because men pay for sex. Do we not see this? Women don't pay for sex. That's not a need or a want for us to pay for. As a matter of fact, we can get paid for it. So men are willing to pay for this. You have to know how to use the power of your own pee to get the bag. Men pay for it. So if they're going to pay for
man.
it, and eventually you want to have sex with a guy and he knows he had to pay for it, he's also going to treat you better if he pays more. When you pay more for something, you treat it better. You know what I'm saying? That's why my grandma has the men she has. That's why it's like, it's just how it is. So I want to be a guy's dream girl. I don't want to be his F buddy, his hit it and quit it. So yeah, spend on me, take me out, court me. You'll treat me better. I'll get what I want out of it, and we'll all be happier. Because women, your emotions are we're so different than men with our emotions, right? So it's like, in order to keep us happy and to keep everything going, it's like, treat us as best as you can. And you're gonna, as a man, you're gonna see a return on that investment. You're gonna have a happy home. You're gonna have a loyal girl. You're gonna have a girl that's not gonna cheat and try to go out, and she's gonna be a good wife and a good mother. That's the investment he makes.
I want to try to get us back a little bit back on track because we went down a rabbit hole, which is bound to happen. Because Cynthia, you were up next, and you've been noticeably silent.
Sorry, I was worried my computer was going to die, so I was trying to fix it. Remind me of the question. I'm sorry.
Exactly. It was what like, did you get emotional, and if so, what scene was it? And so far we've heard, America Ferrera's monologue.
Okay.
Raquel, I totally forgot about the lunch table. Kenyatta talked about watching the men go into power and then these women be of service, which, based on everything I just heard in the last 10 minutes or so, I'm trying to like reconcile those two things living in parallel. And then mine was the conversation with the mom, with the creator at the end.
I guess mine was actually, so do you remember the drawings? I don't know if I'm misremembering, but the drawings that she found, when I realized that it was actually the mom who was drawing them and not the daughter, and how, like, it's like our imagination, our love, like our youth is sort of like disappearing. And I felt like that was like very, it made me feel emotional, like thinking about that, like the divide there, and the transition to whatever the next phase is. So,
Like we still have our little inner child inside.
well, no, not necessarily our inner child, but just that, I sort of took it more of like, also like we're not as valuable anymore, right? Because we are older, our imagination is not as important as it once was, or our creativity, or just our voice, sort of, right? Because her drawings are disappearing, right? Just like a societal, like how as women are getting older, our voice is not as important, which it should be.
Ooh, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but that's also a lie, because look at Jeff Bezos. He's the richest man in the world. He can pay for whoever he wants. Who's his new wife? Who are all his ex-wives? Women that are his age and have power. I just watched a video on this on TikTok. That's why it's fresh in my mind. If you look at some of the most rich and powerful men in the world, they're marrying 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. And it's not that our value gets worse with time. Patriarchy wants you to believe that, because by the time you're 35 plus, not only do you have a career, you have like, okay, you know what I mean? Just saying, like, by the time a woman or anybody's 35, usually just has more common sense, can think for themselves, probably has a career and some money going on. You're more valuable to a guy who's successful now, because
I got to cut you off real quick. I love that. It's interesting that we're talking about value. And the first example that was brought up, though, is richest man chooses woman. But like, my value isn't assigned to me by anybody else other than me. My value isn't assigned to me by whether or not somebody can pay for me or not pay for me. And I'm in a place of power, because which a lot of women across the world are not afforded to, because I don't need anybody to, which means I have the option to choose, is it for love, is it for money, or is it anywhere in between? And that's something that, like, when you go back to your point, Cynthia, around, as you get older, what is your value? The only person you can assign it is me. And that goes for like everybody else here. And it sure as hell isn't insert person who, is doing XYZ in corporate America and who he chooses. Because it's interesting, because like, as somebody who loves rom-coms, I do think that by me watching rom-coms, like, oh, I want to be chosen. Like one of my favorite movies is Pretty Woman. And what I love about this story is she intentionally chose for it to not be a love story. It wasn't about her trying to attract Ken. if anything, it was showing like the other way around, that he's like, Barbie, can you see me? Can you see me? And we're like, chill, bro. Like, if you get your stuff together, of course I'll see you. Because to me, a man being in his masculine isn't him paying for me. It isn't what job he has. It's like, is he comfortable with himself? And that's why Ryan Gosling, bleach hair or not, was such an impactful character, is because he essentially was embodying insecurity. And then, like, first of all, I love that he chose horses, as a person who loves horses. And he's like, I just thought the patriarchy was riding horses, which if only that's what it could be. Because that is kind of hot that a dude can like ride a horse. Yeah, that's what it was for me, is that she was like, it's not about my relationship to Ken. It's not about what he can do for me, but I also don't have to be overly independent that it's only Barbie's world. Like, why does it have to be? And that's why, yes, I get the differences in like equal but different, but it's like, you have your dream life, I have my dream life, and we can choose to merge those two. But that doesn't, I'm not going to give you confidence, and I don't need you to provide for me if I move into a receiving energy. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I want to be in that place.
And just
so
that's
my monologue, my America Ferrera monologue.
And just to add one more thing, like, the fact is I feel like Greta sort of also showed, though, that our value is within ourselves, right? Because in the end, she started doing all the sketches herself, right? So it sort of evolved into that we are the value in ourselves, if that makes sense. I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think
No, go ahead.
I was
You
just
go.
gonna say, I think when she said something like, "Oh, I guess we can have guys' nights too. It's every night's girls' night." I think she said, "I think we can start having guys' nights too." So yeah, go ahead, Amina.
Well, I like that you said that, Lacey, because yeah, I think there's like two forms of value, because there's a value that you have within yourself that you have to cultivate for yourself. And I think every human being, regardless of anything, gender, class, whatever, is all innately invaluable. Like, my worth as a human isn't worth more than your worth as a human, right? Like, I would never think that. But as far as dating what you want and your standards and what you value as a man. So what I'm saying is, it's not that like a man has to choose you to be valuable, or you become more valuable based on who chooses you. But I think what I was saying is that for so long, it's been that a woman's value is just sexual for a man, and the younger you are, the better. But that's not the truth, because we're seeing the richest men in the world, the most quote unquote successful men in the world with these businesses, choose women based on other values than how they look. They're choosing older women who have their own shit together, who are intelligent, who have businesses, who have accolades. They're choosing doctors and scientists and lawyers. So it's like, just because you're a scientist doesn't mean you're more valuable than me. You know that, Lacey. Like, I don't care. We'd be talking to VCs and like, I don't care. I don't
But
think
the
you're more
difference is
valuable.
they are secure. You choose
Yeah.
a secure woman when you yourself are secure.
Definitely.
Or so I'm told.
But all I'm saying is,
Amina,
exactly, it's just more of like, we've been told that older women don't have value, but that's not the truth at all, because men that are secure and have businesses and are older and that could quote unquote have whoever they want, they're choosing women who, like you said, are self-confident, and they're 50 and they're whatever. So I feel like that's just been a lie, and it's coming from under the rug now. It's like, we're seeing the truth now. It's just not, that's never been the case. Older women are just as valuable as younger ones. That's just been a lie.
So what's your answer to the question? Did you get emotional? And if so, what part?
I didn't get emotional per se, but the things that really stuck out to me, also kind of to your point, was like, when Barbie was like, I'm gonna go, there was this one part, she gets on the car and she goes on that adventure and she tries to go alone, and then Ken shows up, right? And I was like, it's just inevitable. Men and women need each other. So it's like, we do need each other, and we always are gonna find a way to be together. So why don't we do it in a healthy way? Like, I think that's what it was like alluding to. It's like, let's do it in a way where everybody wins. It's not me versus you, but it's like, listen to my needs and I'll listen to yours, and hopefully we can come together on those. Because that's what I noticed. She tried to go alone, but she can't. And we're not meant to be separate. Men and women are meant to be together, you know? And then also the other thing that got to me was like, when she didn't want cellulite, when she was like willing to like go to the ends of the earth to not get cellulite, I was like, damn, shit, that hit. That's how I was like, oof.
It's like, who's gonna
crazy.
tell her? Like, you gonna tell her?
Yeah. But over time, I've gotten better with cellulite. I feel like, you know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal to me anymore. It's fine. And it's a sign you're a grown ass human being. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Because even the top athletes have cellulite. Serena Williams has cellulite. It's just part of being a woman.
Oh, I
what
love
mean?
these celebrities that are coming out, even though I was like, I want to talk about the imaginary characters, but I'm loving more and more people posting. Like, look at Pamela Anderson most recently at whatever fashion show in France, and she went makeup free. But I think it's also about what I saw in this movie was the pendulum swing, right? Like it went from being, at the very beginning, I was kind of like cringing when he was like, I want to come hang out. And she's like, but I don't want to hang out with you. Like, this is Barbie's dream house. This is not Ken's dream house. And then, of course, that upset him. So we had this like pendulum swing of overcorrection, which as a society, think of how many examples come to your mind when you think about that. That we have to like come back to center, which is why I keep coming back to this like equitable, noting all of the variables that can or can't be different, but it's coming back to center that, to your point, we're in a society, or we choose to be in a society where like we are dependent on each other. It's supposed to be about connection, but also not about self-importance, like one part being more important than another. And we tend to rock back and forth until we come back to homeostasis. So, question for each of you. I don't know if in the interest of time, we're each going to get a chance to all ask each other questions. So does anybody have one for the group, and not everybody has to answer before we move on to Act 3 and actually playing Truth or Dare?
No, I was going to say, I really like this style almost even better, where it's like one question and we all answer. Or if we do it a different way, another thought would be like each person asks a question and then just one person answers, whoever's, feels called to answer. But the content that we got from this question alone, we have really good stuff.
Well, just like Barbie and Ken, we'll get better over time. But if you are listening and or watching, feel free to let us know what style you prefer. And I think this group may or may not be willing to adjust. Who knows? We'll see. Okay. And we will move on to Act 3. I woke up Daisy a little bit. That's okay. I was like petting her for emotional support. So Act 3 is playing Truth or Dare, which we're still finessing this a little bit, because originally it was like, do we call this Truth or Dare to be different? But then in that title, it kind of says, do you need to be different? Does that work against self-acceptance? But the basis of Act 3 and playing Truth or Dare is either choosing truth, which we're all going to do one by one. I am going to go last because I've gone first on everything. So I will close this out because I still haven't decided which one I'm going to choose. But truth is going to be sharing something about you, whatever you're comfortable sharing, that when you interacted with this story that came to mind from your past or from your present. So truth is about the past. Dare is about what are you going to do in the future? Like, what are you going to dare yourself to do now that you have interacted with Mojo, Dojo, Casa House, Ken and the horse patriarchy, or Barbie dealing with cellulite and the pressures of societal expectations. So, Amina, we're going rotation. You are up first. Truth or dare?
Dare. Let's be bold.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. How are you going to dare to be different or not? What, after interacting with this, do you think you'll change, if anything, in the future?
How will I dare to be different? So I think that, man, I have to think about this. This is like a deep question. Dare to be different.
Growth mindset, babe.
Well, I guess the film made me, this is kind of like superficial, but I want to just dress better in general. Like, I love their outfits so much in the movie. I was like, And yeah, like dress how you want to be addressed, And so like I've actually been working on that for myself, just creating like a next level presentation of myself. And it's definitely more feminine. It's definitely like a lot of skirts and just feeling myself more. Because I've noticed that whenever I dress up, like I always attract so much better. Like, those days when you have a great outfit and you meet people and you go to these unexpected restaurants and things like that. And I guess that's something I'm saying because like, I work in fitness, I live in athleisure. So like now I'm just thinking like, even I've been going to like the grocery store a little bit more elevated, and even just noticing just different interactions I have with that and like just what comes out of that. And I feel like the fashion and the music was just really inspiring in Barbie for that. So that's just like our own personal thing. And also I want to say that like they were all really hot and they were sexy and they were still confident and powerful and in charge. Like, I don't think you have to pick one or the other. I don't think you have to like start dressing all conservative and hide your light, and you can still be powerful and still be taken serious and still, you know what I mean? Have a great career. So I love
clothing
that.
Clothing's definitely my armor. Like I have a better day when I already know what outfit I'm going to wear, when I have it like picked out in advance. So I feel you on that. Okay. Cynthia, are you choosing truth or dare?
I'm sort of in a mix because this is mainly about my daughters and how like I want to instill in them essentially like, you know, that they're special, they're important, their views and ideas are you know, really important, and just trying to instill in them that their voice matters. So
It sounds like that's a truth. Well, or a combination, a trair, a deuce.
Traer. I think I like Traer.
Oh, okay. I'm like looking at everybody's names. Kenyatta, truth or dare?
Honestly, I don't know. I think I'm going to dare. Um, and I'm going to dare myself to have this habit of not completing things that I start. You know how you start like really ambitious with something and you want it so bad, but you let the tiniest thing in life deter you from that, and you use that excuse for so long that it just no longer makes sense anymore. And you just stop telling yourself the lie and you let the dream die. So I'm gonna dare myself to finish everything that I start for myself. And these are things that I start for myself to make me feel like a better version of me, not society's view of me, just me making me better. Um, my biggest thing is school. I don't know what it is with me in school. Every time I try to go to school, life happens. And then I just use that excuse. I mean, I'm gonna own up to. I just use that excuse to not finish what I start, and I got one more semester left, so I'm not gonna let life.
Yeah, girl.
Not gonna, life, because I can stump my toe tomorrow and be like, "Oh my God, I broke my toe. I had to drop my classes." Like that's, I don't know. It's a fear of mine, so I'm going to dare myself to start finishing out the small tasks I set for myself.
Got this.
I love that. Yeah, you do. And also, you showed up today. Like we've been talking about this for what, 3-4 months? So you got to give yourself a little bit of credit. Like, because I find that when you finish one thing, it's like sets a domino effect. As somebody who has a history of procrastinating, so hopefully that's not me projecting my shit onto you. But
no,
yeah,
you cannot do enough. I'm enough of a self-sabotager. I don't need any help.
oh, self-sabotage. That could be an entire podcast episode. We'll wait till the next one, maybe. The beef episode 3. If you follow along with us, that's going to be our 3rd episode, and there's a lot of self-sabotage in that one. Michelle, you are up next, my friend.
Truth or dare? It is tough because there's so many truths and dares to relate to Barbie. I don't know, which does this fall under? I feel like I want to maybe dare myself or be true to myself. I don't know which one, but use my voice a little bit more and advocate for myself more, especially at work, my professional life. So I don't know, ladies, is that more daring or truth?
It's another traer.
Yeah.
Eventually we're going to get to a place where we know each other so well that we're going to choose for each other. Like we're going to round robin this. So we'll shake things up in the future. But
I think that one could also be a dare.
Yeah, maybe. So dare to challenge myself. So daring, yeah. In my professional life.
Raquel?
I would say truth because I identified with her finding herself, finding her identity, who she is, being unapologetically her. And I've been on this journey the past year, I would say, of self-discovery of who I am. And the movie portrayed that story of Barbie. And so I related to that journey that she was on in a lot of ways.
Well, I said I would go last. And what I've heard so far, because, all of you influence me in so many ways. They say, you become the person that you spend, like the top 5 people that you spend the majority of your time with. And I know all of us have had different connections in different ways. And so I'll close out with a truth about my relationship to each of you, because what I heard was like Amina wearing clothes, like being your armor, even though I'm like putting that in my own words, like how you dress, it's how you address the world. If I'm like, I know I'm probably not doing it the justice that you did, but that's okay. They can rewind and re-listen to you explaining it. Cynthia, I loved watching you be a parent to your daughters and like the example that you set for them, which I think you have been and are continuing to do a lovely job. Kenyatta, like finishing what you start, which as somebody who overcommits and takes on too much, it's something that's like a mirror in my face in front of me. And then Michelle about self-advocacy. And then Raquel, like this journey of self-discovery. So my truth is, first of all, I'm daring myself all the time, but to a place where like, what am I doing it for? And I love therapy. I think I was inspired to go to therapy for a myriad of reasons, but my truth is sharing what she asked me earlier this week, and I still don't have an answer for, which is, acknowledging my coping mechanism of trying to do too much. Like what am I doing that for? And even though it's a core part of my identity, and I remember like even when I was a kid, I never questioned, could I be a Supreme Court justice? Could I be the president? Like, I love that opening scene of Barbie where you see all of these women in all of these amazing positions. And I was really fortunate to have a mother, hence the end of the movie being really meaningful to me, like tell me and instill in me that I could do anything that I wanted. And like what's come up on this conversation is like, you can have it all, but just maybe not at the same time, is making sure I always come back to my intention. Like, what am I doing it for? And making sure it's not to compensate, it's not to prove my value to somebody else, including to myself. And so as I continue to dare to do different things, just making sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. So that's my truth to share. And maybe a perfect place to end. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts before we wrap up episode 1?
Okay. Was it just me? But at the very end of the movie, when she's all hyped, she's like, go to the gynecologist. Did anybody else fall out their seat laughing? Because that was the funniest part of the movie to me.
100%.
It wasn't. I am never that excited to go to the doctor.
Right.
She's like,
another thing to normalize.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but
right.
But it's touching on one of those things, like nobody likes to talk about it. And so using humor, that was probably the best way to use humor for that scene. I laughed pretty hard.
Yeah.
well, tell us your favorite part of the movie. If you're listening, hopefully you still are. And like, share, follow, comment, whatever social media that you're on. And join us for episode 2, where we are going to be talking about the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo and how that probably was inspired by Elizabeth Taylor. So thanks for hanging out with us. See you next time.
See you.
You're listening to Truth or Dare to Share by Ambitiously Intuitive.